3, 2, 1.
You ready?
You're listening to the Real Pineapple Podcast Network.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Hunter. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Real Pineapple. Oh wow, I even screwed up the intro. Holy crap, that's fine. But this is a rare misstep in the intro.
You're just too excited.
Yeah, I am really excited. But this is Hunter here, and I'm here with Scott. Scott, how you doing, sir?
Excellent. Thanks, Hunter. It's a good evening over here as well. Thank you.
Happy to hear that. I get to see Scott in a couple months, which I'm so excited about. I get to see Scott soon. Like, yay. I'm so excited to see you, but I'm actually just as excited to talk about this show we're talking about. We're talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which, there's a couple things to talk about in regards.
Is that it? Just a few?
Just a few things. So I'm really curious because we haven't talked about this really at all, which I'll be real, man. I've been talking to like anyone who's seen this will be like, oh my god, let's talk about the show.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot to talk about on this. But this stars, of course, Anthony Mackie, who's played Falcon since Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which if you've talked to Scott and I or Colin, we miss you, bud, or listen to our review, we are all three of us huge fans of Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Arguably still the best MCU film, you could make an argument. Like,
yeah, you could definitely make an argument for it.
Yeah, it's one of the best action films I've seen in the last 20 years. Like, it's a masterclass. I fucking love that film. But this takes place after, of course, Endgame. I would say it's after WandaVision. I'd probably say 2, even though this was, ironically enough, supposed to come out first. But before, COVID fucked everything up. But here's what I'm going to say about this. This is I personally have even been guilty of this, have given Disney a lot of shit for just kind of going like, okay, you'll do something, like Coco or something like Princess and the Frog, but really making a declarative statement as far as, this is where we stand on this. Mm-hmm. And when Scott and I were talking about the show, as far as just the trailers, Scott, I remember you kind of asked me, like, do you have an idea of where, this will kind of end up? And I remember sitting here thinking, okay, if they're going to make a Falcon Winter Soldier show, in theory, it has to end with Sam becoming Captain America. Because, of course, in Endgame, we have that moment where Steve, hands Sam the shield.
Bequests him.
Yeah, which
duty.
We didn't see. We unfortunately didn't get a chance to see Endgame together. But I was in between Colin and Alea when I saw it. And when he pulls out the shield and says, try it on, I remember so to say I was freaking out would be a really big understatement. I was in this theater going, what? Like, bullshit, you're not going to do this. Because the thing is, man, again, it's Disney. I really was sitting there going, are they really going to make him Black Captain America? Like, would they really have the guts to actually go there? And at the end of this series, man, I gotta say, Disney had way more guts than I thought they did, because they get into some shit in this show. I went, okay. I'm pleasantly surprised, and I'll be honest, man, there's a point where I thought they would kind of stop with it, and I would have been like, that's okay. You've done enough. Mm-hmm. But then that episode, the 5th and 6th episode, mm-hmm. they really just go.
They hammer that one home.
Yeah, and I can already hear the, why is Captain America have to be black? Why are you pandering? Oh my god! Like
why are you canceling Captain America, Hunter?
Right, dude. Okay, so it's again. I have a lot to say on this shit. Something that's been
sorry, I don't
want
to get you off track here.
No, you're good. But the amount of just, I'll call it what it is, racist, limp dick white men who just refuse to admit, like, he can't be Captain America. Why does Captain America have to be black? Like I'm the amount of that shit online has been hilariously maddening, and it makes me giggle and pissed off from this perspective. Marvel is clearly getting more diverse. We're getting a female Hawkeye in Haley Steinfeld's Kate Bishop. We're getting Ironheart, Riri Williams, so she's going to be, the Iron, woman moving forward. We're getting Kamala Khan. We're getting a Pakistani Miss Marvel. Like this shit's gonna get a lot, pardon the pun, darker before it gets whiter. And but this is Disney kind of making that statement of going, look, we're kind of going all in on this. And again, I have to give them credit for actually having the guts to go there, because as I said during our Black Panther review, one Black Panther film and one Princess and the Frog film doesn't wipe out, Song of the South and the racist crows from Dumbo and all the times that Disney's gone, racism, what's that? So I actually appreciate that they're actually taking a little bit of ownership over this. But let me stop ranting for a moment. Scott, what were you feeling going into this? Like, did you see trailers for this or anything? Or
I had seen the trailer. I think we watched it. You might have sent it to me. But like it's funny because if you're listening to the show, I feel like you probably have better, like you're a little bit more aware of the Marvel universe or some of these universes, but I just like go in and out of them and kind of treat them as their own thing without connecting them. So when I like go into something like this, I have to kind of like figure out at what point we're at, basically.
Okay.
So it's like, okay, people are showing back up. Like, this is obviously after Endgame. So it's like good to go off of that. But yeah, like honestly, I didn't know a ton about Falcon, but for sure, like as you mentioned before, Winter Soldier was like one of my favorite like action movies of the last however many years. So like super excited to see those guys together, obviously, but wasn't really sure what it was, because I was like, I loved WandaVision. Like I very much loved like the feel and like how they were able to be so seamless as far as like mimicking like certain eras, but like also keeping this like dark undercurrent going. I just really love that. Yeah. So like, and there wasn't like a ton of action really until kind of towards the end. So
true.
Like this is definitely like its own thing as far as like, okay, we're getting back to like Avengers here, like status. So yeah, going into I didn't know a ton about Falcon. I knew he'd been around for a little while, but like honestly, before this, I was like unimpressed with him overall.
Okay.
Just like him not really having powers per se, but like obviously like more of like a brave ass dude. But like Captain America, it was like a legit superhero. So like he had superpowers essentially. But yeah, or a super soldier, I should say. But yeah, I mean, going in, I was like excited for the action part of it. I think that was what was like getting me pumped for it.
Yeah, so I mean, I will say for me, something that Marvel's done a really great job of doing is having these characters where you go, okay, I don't know a lot about you, and they are, if you're not the starring character, if you're not a Tony Stark, a Steve Rogers, you are playing that supporting role, but they have really done a good job, really since Winter Soldier, of fleshing out a lot of these characters who might have been side characters. Like they've done a really good job, even in Winter Soldier, of fleshing out Black Widow, where you go, okay, and even something like Civil War, rest in peace, of course, to Chadwick Boseman. But they cram a whole Black Panther origin story in the middle of a Captain America movie, and it fucking works. It's like, wow, okay. And so, but to your point, Falcon had been Cap's running buddy, and this is really his chance to go ahead and take takes center stage, and
especially, and I'll just say, especially in like the Avenger movies when everybody's together, he's definitely not like the highlight. You know what I'm saying? Like,
no, I gotcha.
I feel like there are other people steal the like. There's almost not enough like screen time for everybody, so you just naturally don't see much of him. But sorry, I let you continue.
Oh, no, you're good. And this was really kind of a question of, can they go ahead and not only legitimize Falcon to become Captain America, but can they flesh out Bucky's story? And thankfully, the answer to both those questions is yes. This the showrunner of this is Malcolm Spellman, who, I'm going to be real, man, this was the thing that shocked me the most. He was a writer on Our Family Wedding, which is one of those, like black rom-coms that I will admit is better than most, but it does have Carlos Mencia, so how good can it really be? But it does have Regina King in America Ferrera, to be fair, too. But, like a good movie, not a great one. But he was also producer on Empire, which is one of those shows I always go, oh yeah, that was a show, wasn't it? So when I heard he was the showrunner for this, I went, oh, I'm a little concerned. I don't know if I want you to be in charge of this. And I will say, and I think you'll know what I mean, Scott, when I say this, the first 3 episodes are definitely like setup. Like not boring setup, but it is setup. Like the first third of the season really is setup. But once episode 4 hits, that's where shit kind of starts to go. And I mean this as a compliment. It starts to go insane with it. But again, in a good way. So just kind of to jump through here, some of the stuff that I just absolutely adore. Anthony Mackie, he's been in the game for a while, whether, going all the way back to 8 Mile, when Eminem, made him look like a asshole. Like he just punked him out. But all the way back, going back to that film, going through stuff like Pain and Gain, which I love him, Pain and Gain. I actually think that's a really good movie. He actually acted with Chris Evans in that movie, What's Your Number, that rom-com with Chris Evans and what's her name? Anna Faris. He's actually in that too. Back through stuff, like Playing It Cool with Chris Evans again, stuff like The Fifth Estate, stuff like I know we didn't review for the channel, but he's in Detroit and he's great in Detroit too. That's a really hard movie to watch. But he's been really just slowly building up this resume for himself. If you haven't seen his Black Mirror episode, I highly recommend you watch it. He's absolutely incredible in that. But Mackie's had this really impressive just like ascension as far as becoming more of an A-list actor. And I thought this was just kind of the explanation point on it. This is a career defining performance for him in my eyes. The more I watch the show, you see him and Bucky in ways that we, to your point, had never gotten a chance to see them before because they were, supporting characters in the other films. But we get to learn more about Sam Wilson just as a person. We learn he's from New Orleans. We learn he's got a boat, he's got a sister, he's got, nephews who are looking up to him. He really has a community looking up to him. And I love the way that that's all portrayed. One of the things in the first episode that just logistically, because I know how logistical you can be, Scott, I mean as a compliment, I love the fact that they actually brought up the concept of what happens if you blipped and you tried to go ahead and get a loan. And that was something that's something I never really thought about. And the way that the banker pretty much goes, oh, you're an Avenger, that's so cool. Oh, you blipped for 5 years, no financials records, womp womp, no loan for you. It's like, wow, that fucking sucks. But then that also ties into the whole concept of black people trying to get loans in general, which, to your point, there is a lot of racial commentary and social commentary in this show that, again, I can already hear, I'll put in quotes, certain types of people not being fans of what this show has to say, but, maybe you should look inward and not be such a piece of shit. But I really enjoyed the way that there are very real world problems in this show. Like it feels very much like the Winter Soldier, but stretched out over I would say almost a 6-hour, film, as it were. It just happens to be a TV show. I do want to talk about Sebastian Stan because we talked about I mean, Sebastian Stan's a handsome man. What do you want from me? But
I know he's just a hunk alert. Sorry,
I know. God, hunk alert. But but Sebastian Stan, though, if you haven't seen I, Tonya, I highly recommend you do. He's brilliant in that film, and I really thought was worthy of at least a Golden Globe, if not an Oscar nomination. But Sebastian Stan's just an incredible actor, and seeing Bucky's journey from, oh man, I'm a really terrifying Terminator, basically in the Winter Soldier, to him, being put in ice in Wakanda to go ahead and being cured. And something that I don't know if you caught it, but something I really appreciated is that they show Bucky going through, I mean, I wouldn't call it rehab, but like rebuild, I guess you would call it rehab, as far as wiping the Winter Soldier programming out of his brain. And that was something that opens up episode, I want to say it's episode 4, I believe that opens. And that scene actually just got me choked up a little bit, because it really speaks to, counseling in general. Like the fact that, yeah, you're going through some real shit, but we're going to go ahead and try to walk you through it. And yeah, man, talk to me about Sebastian Stan. Like, kind of what were your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I think he was definitely one of my favorite parts of this show. He just is kind of a complicated character, and I think he plays really well with Sam's character. I think it was less believable in the beginning, I would say, of their kind of back and forth. That felt a little forced. But then once you really kind of got to know them, I feel like there was a point when they just expose a little bit more than you're used to seeing. So yeah, I think I really liked his performance. I was kind of shocked to see all the things that he has been in really recently, but just definitely a Marvel guy through and through.
Yeah, he's been in a lot of stuff, actually. So something for me that I loved with his performance, to your point as far as their chemistry, I love the fact that at the beginning of the show, they are very much reluctant partners. Even if you go back to Civil War, they're bickering the whole time throughout Civil War. They don't like each other at all, but they both happen to know Steve. So it's very much a partnership of convenience in that sense. We both know this guy, so we'll be as civil as possible without killing each other, basically. And in the first couple episodes of this, they are dicks to each other. They're really quite asshole-ish to each other. And I love very much the lethal weapon aspect of their relationship. Hopefully Sebastian Stan's not a racist, so it's not exactly like the weapon, but you get what I mean. But I love their back and forth. I love when Wilson brings up they always fight 3 things. Was it aliens? The 3 A's, I think is what he brings up. But they're talking about how they're always fighting one of these things. And
kind of breaking the fourth wall a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. It's very much like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge to the audience. But I went, you know what? I actually really appreciate that. We didn't talk about this at the beginning, but the show starts off with Sam giving up the shield to the government, which I was very curious going in the show, going, all right, are they going to address the actual shield itself? And he legit gives it up to the Smithsonian. And I was very pleased and pleasantly surprised to see Rhodey, to see Don Cheadle's Rhodey in this, because I always just love seeing Don Cheadle anyway. And he's got his own show, Armor Wars, coming out next year, I believe. And we'll talk about that at some point. But
it's just it is laughable, the machine that is Marvel. It's oh yeah, he's got one coming out in a year, and then there are just so many movies coming out Marvel related in the
Right?
next like 20 years.
Yeah, when does your Marvel movie come out, Scott? You have one.
Yeah, I've got one in the works.
I would. It's gonna happen
again.
You watch. You're gonna end up in a Marvel movie. You're like, oh man, we called this shit back in the day. But
yeah, and they're gonna reuse Chris Evans to play me.
Well,
like, no, you're not Captain America. No.
Well, Chris Evans would have to get a little more cut to be in your shape, but
sure. I mean,
regardless,
he's getting there.
Yeah, it's like keep working, kid. But but the fact that he gives up the shield and that they have a very they had that conversation of why did you give it up, and I love what Sam says where he goes, the first thing I said is that this felt like it belonged to someone else, and so he gives it up the shield, but. The government, and I love that this is how the show portrays this, because let's be real, dude. This is exactly how the government would play this. Oh, thanks, Negro, for the shield. Let's have this white guy go ahead and be Captain America. Like it's such a slap in the face, and I remember...
Just like a rebrand, total rebrand.
Yeah, it's a total rebrand, and the way that they're just so like, oh, we're really grateful to all the Avengers for saving the world, but new white guy, go ahead and take up the shield. It's like the look on Sam's face when he is watching the press conference as a person of color, that just ripped my heart out. And I'm like, God damn. Like, I was really pissed because obviously, the show's about Sam getting to a place where he's comfortable enough to actually, take on the mantle. So you knew they had to do this in order for us to get to where we need to go. But goddamn, like when I saw that, I was so upset. But we get the new Captain America, who's played by Wyatt Russell, who plays John Walker. And can we just say that while I love Anthony Mackie, and I love Mackie in this, and while I love Sebastian Stan, we have to give some love to Wyatt Russell. Kurt Russell, Goldie Hawn's kid, and he's fucking excellent in this. And
he's so good in this.
And the thing is, and I don't know about you, man, but as I'm watching this, and I actually watched a couple interviews with him, and he flat out said he took the role because he knew it would piss people off. And I went, dude, you know what, man? I respect that. For someone to be an actor and understand, I'm gonna get a lot of heat for this, because my God, where this character goes at points, I'm just sitting there going, God damn, you're an asshole. like you're such a fucking douchebag. There is this point, I want to say it's episode, in episode 3, he even introduces himself like, hi guys, Captain America. You're sitting there like, you fucking douchebag. And episode 2 opens with him taking on the mantle. He's at his old high school. Good morning America is there. Like, they're giving him every fucking chance to succeed, and they're asking him, like, well, you're the first man to get, I think it was a 3, like not 3 purple, 3 medals of honor. That's what it was, and they're laying all these things out about why he is the perfect.
And he's even like being not even only portrayed that way, but he's like acting that way too. You're like, okay, like, yeah, this guy, there's something weird about this guy, but also I have no evidence of it yet. Like, they haven't shown you anything, so there's like a bit of a mystery there because he's actually acting like a good guy, and like there's scenes of him with his best friend. What is his name?
The guy, Battlestar is the guy, but it's his title. Yeah,
right.
Lamar is who you're thinking of.
Right,
Lamar
exactly.
Hoskins. Yeah.
So, I just lost my train of thought there.
All right. I got you. But so
where was I going with that?
So you're right, but to your point, you're saying that he was very much that, being. You can feel like something's off about him as you're watching.
Right. Like, but the things that he didn't necessarily give that off. Where it was like him interacting with his best friend. Of like, they're like, okay, this feels like we're looking into a part of his life that isn't fraudulent, and he's like, seems like a good person who wants to do his best, basically. Which I appreciate that they didn't just paint him as this one stroke, like, crazy person, that there's like a little bit more depth to it.
Agreed. And to your point, I think you'll know what I mean. This is almost like watching a VH1 Behind the Music episode where you're just starting to see these little cracks in his psyche, and you're kind of going, "Oh, that's a flag, okay," and "Oh, that's a flag," and just there's a point where the flags are piling up to a level I went, "Oh man, this is not going in a direction that it needs to be." The point. And my partner brought this up, and I have to give her so much credit for it. The thing that I acknowledged, I was like, that's odd. And she went, well, what about this? In that Good Morning America interview, they're talking about, how, he tested this highly in intelligence, and he has the 3 medals of, the 3 medals of honor. Right. At no point do they bring up any psychological evaluations, and that is a giant red flag as the show progresses, because you go, oh man, dude, you're kind of nuts. And for those dum-dums who are like, why Sam Captain America? This is why he didn't give the shield to Bucky, you dipshits. Like, this is the literal reason why he went, should I get it to the psychopath, or maybe the mild-mannered black guy who could grow in this? Like, that's why. And this show is a perfect representation of really how we treat our military too. Because the other thing is, the government shouldn't be messing with Captain America anyway. And that's something, if you read Captain America comics, it's a common thread of Cap going, the government's being a little fucking terrible. Maybe I shouldn't answer to them. And when he eventually just starts to crack and break down, you go, yeah, man, your military training can't prepare you even for just the magnitude of taking on this mantle and having to be, that literal symbol of America. And it's really quite tragic. There's that point where, and I mean, we're going to jump all over the place anyway, but that point where he goes ahead and snaps and kills this guy in cold blood. And when that shit happens, I remember watching it, with my partner, and I went, well, shit, this was kind of bound to happen. But the way he literally just grabs the shield and bashes this dude's head in, you just go, well, fuck, that's not good. Like, it's such an insanely bad look, but it points to honestly why a show like this is necessary. And I think you'll know what I mean. We've talked about The Boys off mic, and there's that meme going around, or that's been going around, of how the U.S. sees itself, and we see Superman, and it's like how the U.S. actually is. It's a picture of Homelander, and that really is pretty much the meme in this show, where we want to think as a country that, we're this, we're the apple pie, let's bring everyone together. Yeah, America. And the way that we get blood on our hands, the royal we, metaphorically, the way we treat other countries and everything. The shot of the blood-stained shield at the end of episode 4 is one of my favorite shots in the entire MCU. It's the exact opposite end of the spectrum of that shot of Cap in Endgame, where Thanos' army is all like bearing down on him, and he just kind of looks out and goes, all right, man, like, let's do this. That shot of heroism versus that extreme shot of nationalism that he has with the blood on his shield. It's such a grim, dark look into, and a really dark reflection of America as a country. But when he's being told, you're not going to be Captain America anymore, you're really lucky we're not throwing your crazy ass in jail, and he flat out says, I did what you trained me to do. And I went, fuck, he's not wrong. And when you think about how that relates to our military, and how, we tell men and women, go overseas, do A, B, and C, we'll have, a job waiting for you. And how often there isn't one, and how we just kind of go, well, you did what we told you to do, food stamp line is over there. Like, it's really fucked up. And when he talks about how I did what you told me to do, I was an instrument for you, I followed your protocols, and how you're just gonna discard me. It's really fucking tragic. And while John Walker is a douchebag, and I was never like, oh, I hope you're redeemed, because again, you still stuck. But it really does point to how we treat men and women as less than that, how we treat them as instruments to go ahead and carry out, quote, America's agenda. And how once once we're done with them, we're done with them. And I found that really tragic. Kind of your thoughts on that, man?
Yeah, I think it was poignant for sure. I think it was I could argue it was a bit like in your face, obvious, like okay, that's like the blood on the shield. I think that leads into like the end of a really great fight scene, which I feel like was like really something that this show excelled in. And I know we're going to get into them because you're going through some of the episodes here, but think about that one in particular, and like the way that it kind of sets out where they Bucky, Sam, and Walker all end up like fighting together in the beginning, and then they kind of split up. They end up fighting each other, and then all three of them end up fighting together again later. I just like, as far as the symbolism is concerned, I agree with you, but I think it was like a little heavy-handed, I think, but I still appreciated it. But I thought that like that moment was such a great moment because of like the really like when this show ramped up, it really like it puts you on your heels. Essentially, it was like, okay, we're gonna take this to the next level. It's like, oh shit, Walker is actually like a terrible person who he like can't come back from this, basically.
Yeah.
And then like like you're saying, like his trial or whatever of his dismissal is like, him just yelling in that courtroom was definitely poignant as well. It was like, okay, yeah, I am just your instrument. You like I am just an extension of you. So it was like, okay, damn, he's got a point, even though, like you said, he's a total douchebag, which I believe he played perfectly.
He did.
But like his character was great. I think he was like one of the best characters in this show.
So the other thing I will say, and I'm paraphrasing, but they bring up the fact that he has purple hearts, I want to say. And he even brings up the fact of, the government gives me something that's the literal personification and represents the worst day I had in my life. And I went, that's a really interesting point that psychologically I never really thought about it like that. Like that's not, you could argue we shouldn't have anything like that. And the show makes like when it made that point, I went, huh. And I remember really sitting here after the episode ended and going, fuck, I'm like, that was kind of running through my brain quite a bit because, yeah, you think about how, we tell people just, it's a literal trophy in that sense of, hey, you killed someone, congrats. And, how can you get over something like that psychologically, even going through counseling when you have the personification of that in your home? And I went, huh, okay, that's a well played show. And to be honest, can you? I mean, the show never comes out and says you can't, but I think it's something alone that's well worth a discussion as far as that's concerned. Okay, I do want to throw it to one character that we have not talked about yet. Daniel Bruhl comes back as a Baron Zemo. First off, that coat he's rocking is fucking incredible. Like, I need that coat. Yeah, I really want that Zemo coat. But they break him out of jail to start episode 3 because they find
such a great scene too.
Right. So they go ahead and break him out because they find out that the super soldier, there is someone who's making super soldiers again somehow. And so, Zemo being the one who had all that Hydra information after Black Widow leaked it at the end of Captain America, the Winter Soldier, again, tying this all together. The fact that they go ahead and break him out because he knows so much about Hydra and how it fell and everything. I love the fact that we get this, buddy cop show, but then we basically have the MCU's the closest thing they probably have had to a Hannibal Lecter, because Zemo's just picking his spot. It's on a clock. He's clearly waiting for a point where he can escape, but he's playing it really fucking smooth because, and I love his portrayal. Now, in the comics, and I should know this, but I don't recall him being, at least in the main canon, him being, this like socialite or anything like that. But you find out, Zemo's got some money, and so, which honestly, the retcon,
cue the gif.
Yeah, I love that. I was like, you know what, cool, right on. And I love that he even tells his butler, oh, if you can find some food and it doesn't smell right, feed it to them. I'm like, damn, dude, like you want to like poison these guys. But there's this great scene when they're on his jet because they're going to Madripoor, and we'll get to that in a second. But I love that scene they're having about talking about the shield and how, the legacy of Steve. And that was something that I really just went, I love the way that this is breaking down. They also have a talk about Marvin Gaye's Trouble Man, which I don't know if I know you've listened to that album because you have taste, but I love that album so much. I love how Zemo even kind of educates Bucky on, it's a complete representation of the African American experience, and how Sam goes. Moment. Yeah, Sam goes, he's out of line, but he's 100% correct. I'm like, yeah, he is right. But Zemo's great in this, man. I think you'll know what I mean. Zemo could give a fuck because Carly, like one of the main villains here, like she is for all intents and purposes. She's a child. She's a teenager, and Zemo shoots her. Like not giving a shit. He's like, oh, you're super powered? Bam! Like I love the fact that his give a fuck meter is that broken, but that he's acting from this sense of morality that he truly believes is correct. He believes that, hey, the Avengers, fair or not, killed my family, collateral damage. Like there shouldn't be any super powered people in the world at all, and he's dead set on that. And I love that that's a common thread throughout the show as far as how power is distributed, who has the power. I know I talked about Marge Report here just a second ago. Zemo dancing is something I didn't know I needed.
That's what I'm talking about with the GIF. Like him dancing is just like the best. I love all the music behind it too.
Yeah,
especially because they keep cutting back to it to make kind of like a point of it. I love it too. So good.
Well, it's funny because there's an actual hour-long cut of him dancing to the music that Marvel officially released. And every now and then my stoned ass, I'm like, you know what? I love this music slaps. Let's just watch Zemo dance for like 5 minutes. But I thought his character work was so incredibly well done because he is kind of that counterbalance to Sam and Bucky of being like, look, y'all, this shit has dire consequences, and and power corrupts, absolutely, as the saying actually goes. And the line that he drops is, can you be, and I'm paraphrasing, but can you be a superhuman and have it separated from supremacist ideals? And that's a question that the show doesn't, outright answer, but it's really an interesting dialogue of, can you do that? Like, can you actually be super powered and keep, the interests of the world at your forefront before the power actually corrupts you? And I believe it's Sam who says, the serum never corrupted Steve, to which, Zemo says touche, but he even has to immediately retort, there's never been another Steve Rogers, has there? I mean, Bruce Banner, it fucked him up. Red Skull, that didn't turn out great. Winter Soldier, that didn't turn out great. Like, anytime they try to replicate this serum, shit goes bad. And it's really one of those things you go, shit, he's not wrong when he puts it like that. And I really love that counterbalance to, the heroism aspects of the show, because it does point out the dangers as well. Okay, so I want to get to my two gripes before I get back to just...
Yeah.
to just, like going like, the show is perfect. Oh my God. Like, so yeah, I know you're making the slurping sound. I would gladly blow the show. If I could get the second season tomorrow, I'd be willing to make that sacrifice for the world at large. But so okay, so Erin Kellyman, she plays Carly. I thought they actually did. Pardon me. I actually thought they did a really good job giving her character development in a limited amount of time, because the thing about Carly is she's very much like she's very much a mercenary. She's very much this kid. She's very much a kid, and I think you'll know what I mean when I tell you this. She's every teenager at 20. She's every young adult at 21. Like, she's pissed off at the world. She's like, this is bullshit. Why aren't things better? And she's just going about it in a very Malcolm X in his early days way. Like, she's going about it in a very militant way. I love the way that the show brings up the concept of, one world, one people without borders. And that in itself is a whole other thing when you think about, how Wakanda flat said, we're staying away from the world because, you're kind of burning and killing each other. So we're going to stay over here and be black and awesome. But Carly, though, is, to her point, brings up the fact that, all these people, blip back into existence. So many of them are on the street. This is bullshit. How can the government do that? And to be fair, man, she's not wrong. She's just going about it in a very insane sort of way, and is really making things worse before she's making them better. But her core argument, her thesis, isn't incorrect. And that was something I went, I really enjoy that. I wish, and I will put this out there too, I'm not sure if you're aware, but the pandemic did fuck up like the show, in the sense, apparently there were supposed to be more storylines and stuff, but there was shit that had to be cut just because, of shooting and all that. There's supposed to apparently be more with Carly and the Flag Smashers. I think for what we got, it does work. I would have liked a little more, even if I could have gotten like a mini episode, maybe make this a 7-episode count. Like,
yeah, I think a lot. Yeah, definitely, I agree with you. That's probably one of my biggest gripes. I wasn't really sold on Carly in this role. I think it was like, maybe it wasn't her age, but the way, like, Erin Kellyman's age, or the way that she looks, it was like not quite believable enough for me.
Okay.
But not to say it didn't work. I just would have preferred somebody different for this, I think, because there was just like a lot of unevenness, and what you're saying makes sense. I'm just learning about this, that, they had some complications with filming, which, is understandable. It did feel a bit uneven, that I wanted more from that, like you're saying. Like, I feel like the flag smashers were a bit like oversimplified, I guess might be the right word. Of just like, they have this like creed that's like all people for everybody, and then they're also like mercenaries. Like, they're also just like, she just like will set that building on fire with innocent people in it. So it's like a bit hypocritical, which I think there is the purpose of why they're showing you that, is that,
I think that's exactly the point.
Right.
Personally, yeah.
Right. But I think that I would have liked to see from more of that. And like I said, just not super sold on Carly as like as the evil entity in this. I don't know. I just wasn't. I felt like the Flag Smashers could have been a little bit more. Their presence could have been felt a little bit more in this.
Yeah, and I'll give you that. Like I say, it wasn't enough for me to like digging the show too much, but I was like, a little more with them would have been nice. And here's the other thing I will bring up. So Emily VanCamp, who I just really random. I don't talk about it too much. Not because I'm embarrassed or anything, but do you remember that show Revenge? I was on ABC. I really liked that show. Like, I actually really loved her on that show. I thought that show was a lot of fun. And one of my few gripes with the MCU overall has been that Emily VanCamp's Agent 13, I was like, you should use her more. And, you get a great fight scene with her and Black Widow, taking on taking on Bucky there in Civil War, before T'Challa comes and fucks him up. But I really enjoyed Emily VanCamp just in the prior appearances she's had, and seeing her back in the fold, I was really happy they brought her back because I felt like they had unfinished business with her, and they kind of leave her in and out. Like they bring her in for certain aspects of the show, and then they kind of pull her. And I went, "Why are you pulling her?" And where her character ends up, I went, "Oh, that's why you fuck." Okay, and we'll get to that, but I think they've done better by her. They did better by her in the show. I would have liked, again, I think this could use one more episode, half Flag Smashers, half of like her, like as far as like a catch up for what she was doing post Civil War, because they do kind of give you that in episode 3, but I could have used a little more of it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. And I feel like that would be my, if I had to say something about the Marvel Universe and the way they did things, one of the small things would be like the expectation of like previous universe knowledge, like beginning. I'm not saying that everything has to be an origin story, like, but I feel like it always takes me like at least a few episodes to figure out like, okay, where we are in this. Just trying to reconnect things like as you're going through this, and I feel like that there could have been some of that in here. I'm not sure how you would fit that in, but not I'm not talking about explanation, but like there are ways to go about reminding people of like things that had happened, or I'm not saying necessarily like the everyone vanishing, but certain storylines that we hadn't seen before just played out a little bit more. But it's something small from this but I really liked it as a whole.
So
go ahead.
I would say on that front, so to an extent I do get what you're saying, but at the same time, and I think this is a fair point to bring up, Marvel is trusting you've watched everything up to this at this point. Like if you're not with the MCU by this point, they're not going to really hold your hand and be like, "All right, let's catch you up." It's like you kind of need to know.
See, but my point I think is that I don't think that's smart. Like I feel like if you want to have maybe a bigger audience rather than just like, because I know people will shy away from Marvel because it's a thing, like it's its own thing. It's kind of like anime where you have if you know kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But I think if you're like allowing, I just am not like completely immersed in Marvel, so it feels like I'm always each movie, each like series that they put out, it's like, okay, trying to catch. And I'm not saying it's not my fault. Like I should probably do a better job of like keeping up.
Or just text your podcast partner about like, "Hunter, what's going on with Marvel?" Like
no, and I'm saying that I'm more representing people who don't follow it as closely or do movie reviews or whatever. So like I don't know. That's always been kind of my gripe with them. Is like I feel like it's like the expectation shouldn't always be there. They should at least give some clues throughout, which I think they do, but I don't know. I think it can always be better.
Yeah, like here's the thing, people. If you need to get caught up on these, like, I'll just be real. At this point, we're 21 films, something like, Jesus Christ, for 20 films.
Now that I think about it, it's really not like about the characters themselves, but like small Easter egg stuff, like that you will know that something's coming or they're inferring this one thing. But if you're not really on top of it, then it's a little bit harder to stay with it. Does that make sense? Because it's like,
does.
We all know the character. We know the Avengers. Like that's why you're watching this, because you know these guys. But it's like there's like things that connect to, like, if you're referencing a movie from like 10 years ago or something, I feel like you should probably give like a little bit of a heads up or like an introduction or something.
Okay. I'll say for myself, one of the best action beats is that scene you mentioned earlier with Bucky and Sam fighting John Walker, and I thought that
Right.
scene, it's very reminiscent of the fight in Civil War, which I thought was just a great callback, and I think you'll know what I mean. The line where they're just like, look, like where Sam is, like, so to remind you of this, if you go back to Winter Soldier, Sam brings up the fact that he works at the VA and that he's a counselor now. And I really appreciate that they brought that back when he's talking to Carly, because, Sam, being Sam, is like, hey, maybe we shouldn't immediately kill this child. Maybe we should try to talk to her. And John Walker is basically like, fuck that. Let's go ahead and just arrest her now. And Sam really does try to talk her down. Again, go figure. Actually trying to talk to the person. And I love the line of where she goes, these are people who are basically obstacles in my cause, and I'd kill. They're roadblocks. That's what she said. They're roadblocks in my journey, and I'd kill them again if I had to. And Sam isn't even like baiting her or anything. He's letting her basically, trip over herself and break down her ideology that way. And I went, that's how you counsel someone. You don't just hammer home like, you suck, you're wrong, this is why. Like, he really takes the time to go ahead and understand what she's feeling. And the line that he drops of, I agree with your fight, I just can't get down with how you're doing it. I went, that right there is the point. But everyone else, to Sam's point, is just seeing this, this violent kid. And I appreciate the way that he, kind of breaks things down like that. Speaking of counseling, Bucky's counselor in here, because they actually bring up the fact that he got a pardon, but part of the conditions of his pardon with Dr. Rayner, who's played by Amy Aquino, who did a great fucking job for the little bit she's in here, is that he has to go ahead and actually go to counseling. And there's this point where him and Sam are in counseling together, and you see they tease the scene in the trailer, or one of the trailers, and I love that Bucky is very, against counseling, like, counseling sucks, this is dumb, blah, blah, blah. And through what they think is a bullshit counseling session, Bucky kind of breaks down and, goes, Steve believes in you, he trusted you, you gave up that shield, you threw it away like it was nothing. And, if he was wrong about you, maybe he was wrong about me. And that was something I went, oh, like, he just misses his friend. I'm like, that's really sad, but that's really sweet. And sometimes it's just that simple, sometimes it doesn't have to be some, grand thing. Sometimes it is just that basic. And I actually appreciated that it wasn't some grand thing, if that kind of makes sense. But, but I love the way that was portrayed, and how they both have their issues they have to get over with. I have saved this last thing about the show for last. I do have other shit I want to bring up, but this is kind of the last big thing I want to bring up. We got to talk about Isaiah Bradley. And when this show was announced, I remember going, okay, if you're going to tell a story of a Black Captain America, you really have to address this thing. And that's why I was kind of like, are they going to have the balls to actually go here? So Red, White, and Black, it's this limited series run that Marvel did, I want to say back in like 2003, I want to say, but it was written by Robert Morales and Kyle Baker. And the story in that is very similar to what it is here in the show, with, you find out that there is a Black Captain America. He went ahead, did all these things, and then eventually was captured and experimented on to go ahead and try and replicate the super soldier serum. And I will say, man, as a person of color, they introduced Isaiah in episode 2, and he's played by the brilliant Carl Lumbly. You've seen him in a lot of stuff, whether it's Alias, whether it's Men of Honor, This Is Us, just to name a few things. And I gotta be real, man, this was the stuff, and I think you know what I mean, it's uncomfortable in how very accurate it is, because when you think about, he makes a reference to Red Tails, the Tuskegee Airmen, and when you think about the Tuskegee experiments and stuff like that, back to my point, it's a very dark turn, pun intended. It's a very dark turn that Marvel takes with this, because when you think about the Super Soldier Serum, how inspirational Steve's, whole arc is, this skinny kid from Brooklyn goes ahead and becomes the literal personification of America. And then you think, oh, there's this black guy who did the exact same thing, but we're going to bury this like as deep as humanly fucking possible. It's really fucking tragic, man. And the more they got into it, the more I'm watching it as a person of color going, fuck, this is like pissing me off, because again, you think about how, and I think you'll know what I mean when I bring this up. One of my biggest pet peeves, and this is a genuine pet peeve of mine, is what's that website, ancestry.com or whatever, like those, like
ancestry.com.
Yeah, those kits you can send like your blood or whatever and like find out about your history. And I went, man, it must be great to be able to do that, because that's something black people can't do. And when he talks about how, they've been trying to bury our history for 500 years, I went, fuck. When he dropped that line, I went, God damn it, you're so incredibly right. And that makes me so incredibly sad. And his anger, dude, like, Scott, you've known me for years. You've known me for almost a decade. I think I'm a pretty optimistic person, but I'll be real, dude. I completely get where he's coming from. Like, his anger towards all of this, I went, yeah, man, that's fair that you feel this pissed off, because the way he got screwed because, and again, I'm gonna go Marvel on you, so still stay with me, Scott. But when you think back to the first Avenger and how all those men in that unit got captured, and Captain America used Peggy Carter and Howard Stark's plane, goes ahead and gets dropped behind and saves all those men, including Bucky himself, and he's praised as a hero, gets the Captain America mantle, gets a new fucking costume, gets the vibranium shield. Isaiah does the exact same fucking thing. He gets captured and experimented on for 30 years. Like, the contrast in that is that alone is fucking tragic. And you just go, huh, he did the exact same thing that Steve did, and he got penalized for it. And you just go, shit, that's not fair. And when you hear him talk about, they'll never let a black man be Captain America, I'll be real, dude. Obviously, I knew, like, yeah, Sam will become Captain America, but it gave me just enough doubt to go, he's not wrong, because if they really wanted a black Captain America, they would have reached out to the guy who gave them the fucking shield in the first place. Like, it's one of those things you go, I get his anger, but, like, can you move forward being that angry? Like kind of your thoughts on that, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely you definitely wanted to make that point. I really liked Isaiah Bradley's character. I feel like his interactions with Sam really brought all of those more moral questions that you're talking about to the forefront, and challenged him basically to face those, and then how it concludes, I feel like it really ties a nice bow on it. But yeah, I mean, they definitely hammer it home of like the well-documented treatment of people of color in the United States, and how there was, someone who was trying to be Captain America at that time who wasn't white would just not make it, really, as surprising as when he existed when he did. But yeah, I think the story is great there. I think that they really the writing is well done, and to where they develop these two characters together. And essentially, he is a critical piece of Sam's growth and his development into Captain America. But yeah, going through it and definitely like hearing his experience really, you know, set a weight of the shield to Sam that he hadn't really felt before.
Yeah, in episode 5, you know, Sam flat out says, you know, the legacy of the shield is complicated, and I'll be real, dude, to call it complicated still underselling it. I went, yeah, complicated may not even be strong enough of a word, but okay, so I have to get to it. So episode 6, I'm going to be real, dude. I think it's about as perfect for me a finale that I've seen. Like, it goes up there with season 4 of Breaking Bad for me. So, you know what? Okay, I think you'll know what I mean. So you remember at the end of season 4 of Breaking Bad when you see that plant and you realize that Walt had killed that kid and you're like, oh my God, Walt, you're a fucking monster. What the fuck's wrong with you? I felt that same feeling, but in terms of Glee. You know what I mean? Where I just like once I got to the end of this episode, I was like, oh my God, it's so good. Like I was so like I you know, luckily my partner and I were both vaccinated, so she was able to come over and watch with me in person. And I was just so again, man, I have to go back to the guts of this because about 3 minutes in, like 4 minutes in, we get the reveal of the new Cap costume because we find out that Wakanda had developed Sam's new costume after John Walker was an asshole and broke his wings. And I gotta be real, dude. If you look at the comic version of it, it's a damn near actually, I'll be real. It is a perfect take of it from comics to screen. I just think it looks fucking beautiful. Obviously, the costume will evolve because, you know, Disney's got to sell toys, but seeing a black man as Captain America, I think I wept at least three times. Probably underselling. I probably wept at least 5 times in the final episode. I was like, oh God, it's so good. And I'll be real, man. The speech that Sam gives about being Captain America to these senators and everything on the street, it legit is one of the best speeches I've seen in a show in the last 10 years. Like, I was actually flabbergasted. Like, where he talks about, you know, anytime I pick this shield up, I know there are going to be millions of people who are going to hate me for it. I went, okay. And they immediately cut to John Walker because, let's be real, John Walker had been, like, his level of misogynistic assholery was just really just upping itself each episode. We haven't even brought up the fact that fucking Dora Milaje show up and he even goes, oh, hey, let's put the sticks down. I went, oh, just a hint of racism and sexism in that. Like, oh, you asshole. And then they whip his ass because, you know, they deserve to. But, you know, Sam saying, you know, even here, I feel the stares, the judgment, and there's nothing I can do to change it. Yet I'm still here. You know, no blonde hair, no blue eyes, no super soldier serum. The only power I have is I believe we can do better. And I went, holy shit. Like that speech, man, I could not believe that they wrote this, to be honest. And the fact that they have him saying it on a global scale, you know, in front of all these cameras. Cause I'll be real, dude. Could you imagine if someone said this shit tomorrow? Like if a politician came out and just dropped this shit like on a Monday morning, the world would lose its shit. They'd be like, what? How dare you? And it's insane to me that they had, again, the guts to actually go ahead and lay this shit out. And it should be a call to all politicians, you know, whether you're liberal or, you know, right wing or you're Democrat, Republican. That speech right there should be a call to action. We have the power to make change. And the fact that Sam, that's his, at the end of the day, his biggest strength is that he believes in doing the right thing, just like Steve did, which is why he earned the mantle, I'd like to point out. But that speech in particular was something I just went, I can't believe they actually did that. And I'm actually really happy that they did that because this lays the floor for Sam going forward. Now, let's be clear. the job's not done. Like, he's still like, I love that Bradley even goes, oh, you're not no Malcolm, Martin, or Mandela. And I was like, God damn, dude. I cut him a little slack. But that speech in particular, like, kind of your thoughts on that, man? Because I was kind of watching the speech going, I wonder what Scott's going to think when he sees it.
I mean, it was fine. It was good. I mean, it was just like,
oh, really, man?
I wasn't moved by it.
Why are you the way you are?
You're just so invested in this deeply, which I love you for. But I just am not as invested to that level. So it just doesn't. It just seemed like. I mean, it wasn't like a terrible speech, but it was just like end of a movie speech that was like trying to inspire and unite everybody, which was fine. It was fine, but I was not moved.
Oh, Scott. Trying to make me sad. Okay. That's fine.
You asked me.
I did ask you. I did. And I maybe I shouldn't have, but it's fine. In closing, because I could genuinely talk about the show for another hour, but we're not going to do that. As far as the last things I want to bring up, man, the work's not done for Sam. And what I mean by that is, and I love that Isaiah tells him that. He's like, look, the fight you're taking on isn't going to be easy. I mean, and let's be real. I've been in the comments sections on fucking, like, the moment this ended. And I'm going to, you know what? Fuck it. I'll do it. So I have a friend of mine whose sibling has been one of those people who's been like, why are we getting so diverse? Why are straight white male superheroes disappearing? Why is that no longer the quote norm? I'm going to be kind and not drop this person's name. But flat out, this person pulled the old tweet and delete, hashtag not my Captain America. And if you're one of those people, you're the reason why the show is fucking necessary. Because until a black man representing this country is no longer seen as a threat, we need shows like this. We need films like Detroit. We need things to show the black struggle in a way, because, kneeling on a field apparently just fucking freaks people out. And, wearing a t-shirt does that. So we've tried to go the subtle route. So you know what? And to your point, Scott, is the show always subtle? No, it's not always subtle. But again, sometimes when you leave room for subtlety, you leave room for misinterpretation. And unfortunately, we have shown as a country that we can't even give ourselves the benefit of the doubt when it comes to certain things, race being one of them. So the fact that this show at points is so heavy-handed, I went, you know what? Good. Kind of needs to be. Because, again, I like to point out, we are getting a Miss Marvel TV show. Again, Pakistani-American girl becoming Miss Marvel. And I'm already seeing, because there were some photos that leaked of her in the costume. And I'm already seeing people go, oh, like, I won't even repeat some of the show I'm saying, but the one thing I will say is people are already going, oh man, be ashamed if something happened. Or this is literally a 15-year-old kid, and people can't even. I'll be real, dude. I know very few people who read Miss Marvel. I read Miss Marvel, but a lot of people I know don't fucking read Miss Marvel, and yet that's threatening to people. Not even a character they like, and they can't even comprehend that someone that's a minority is taking over that mantle. And it's mind-boggling at this point. Isaiah brings up the point of, you want to think that times are different. You want to think that we've, evolved, and I'm somewhat paraphrasing, but it's an interesting question. Like, I think as a country, we were so very self-congratulatory in the sense of, hey, we got 2 years of Obama, racism's dead. No, just go on the comment section. Just go on Twitter. I promise you, racism, unfortunately, is still out there. But at the end of the day, though, man, getting to my final thoughts here, and I will let you have the floor after I finish my diatribe here. But I really appreciate the fact that this show exists. And one of the last things Sam says is, we built this country, bled for it, and I'm not going to let anyone tell me that I can't fight for it. At the end of the day, that's the optimism we have to have. Yes, there are things about this country that are incredibly backward still and don't even match the ideals that we strive for. but goddamn, this show I think is an incredible step of growth for Marvel. We both gave WandaVision an A-. I remember. We thought it, there are some issues with it. Again, I'm not gonna say this is a perfect show. We brought up a couple of the issues we had, and and I'll be real, I didn't even get to everything that I fucking wanted to bring up. The last thing I will bring up, when John Walker's friend Lamar gets killed, he flat out goes to the family and lies to their fucking faces. I was like, God, you're a monster. Like that scene in particular, I'm like, God damn you, dude. But yeah, man, I just have so much admiration for this show. They apparently have already announced Captain America 4 starring Anthony Mackie, which hell yeah, I'm all for them continuing Captain America films. So I'm really excited to see where they take Sam, but they've made him Black Captain America. Now the work kind of begins of justifying it. So, yeah. So for me, okay. I like this more in WandaVision. I personally like this more in WandaVision.
If you cried in it as many times as you said, you better like him more than Wanda.
Oh, I did. Oh, absolutely. but again, though, man, like this is a show, and I think this is kind of made for me, man. Like this was,
totally, absolutely. No, I 100% get where you're coming from, totally.
Yeah. So like I said, I think the last episode, I think it's about as perfect of a last episode of television as you can get, and we'll kind of get into the ramifications as far as what I think this sets up after we give our ratings here. But I'd be lying if I said this wasn't a fan-fucking-tastic for me. Like, again, it's not a perfect show, and I have to stress that. But as far
for you,
yeah, for me, oh no, even as much as I enjoy it, it's not a perfect show. But for the enjoyment that I had and for the things I think the show points out, I have to get a fan-fucking-tastic. I think it's an absolutely brilliant show. I think it's a great season of television. And again, the fact this came from the guy who did fucking Empire, last thing I expected. So yeah, fan-fucking-tastic for me. But yeah, Scott, your final thoughts and grades, sir.
Yeah, this is like a really enjoyable show. Like the characters in it and the actors that portrayed them, I feel like there wasn't a bad character in the bunch. And then like them revealing some people towards the end was appreciated. Like you kind of touched on, I really liked Walker's whole storyline and him just kind of going through these roller coaster of emotions and fluctuations between good and evil. And like they really gave him a human element to where he wasn't just like this crazy person the whole time. And he was just constantly conflicted about, like, he wants to be this Americana guy and be Captain America, but then he's also been screwed royally and these people are trying to take it away from him. And also this transformation that he's going through and him getting crazier. But I just like the way that they added a little bit of human element to that.
Yeah.
Somebody else you touched on, Isaiah Bradley, we've talked about that a lot. And then like I don't think I was not affected by it the same way you were, but I definitely understood the importance of them exploring racism so much in this. And like you said, there is absolutely like a need to, bring it to the forefront and kind of put it in your face because, like you said, you can cry ignorance otherwise. But I think that, like I said, it didn't affect me the same way. I feel like the series as a whole started a bit slow. I feel like I wanted a little bit more from the Flag Smashers, a little bit more about them, I guess. It was just kind of very much Carly, and because she was not my favorite, it's not that I didn't enjoy it, it's just like I feel like it could have been a lot better. Like we already touched on some of the battle scenes, especially like when you get all three of them versus Carly. Just kind of a cool, like, I appreciated the way they tied that up, and I agree with you that the final episode was really incredible. Like that was a really great way to tie everything together, and it was like these moments of like, oh shit, like and part of it was that build, I believe, but
agreed.
It's I don't know. It's hard for me to decide if I like it better than WandaVision or not, because like they're very different.
Agreed.
In their shows. I feel like an A minus is appropriate for it because I really enjoyed the build up and the relationship between the two of them. And I really liked the show. I don't think that I was affected by it quite as much as you were. But I think it is absolutely worthy of the watch and, worthy of the, Marvel name for sure.
Okay, you at least gave it, because I was sitting here, I'm like, if you go B+, I'm like, Scott, I'm like, come on, man. But okay, A-. So you liked it as much as WandaVision, basically, because you gave okay,
I think so, yeah, and it's like WandaVision didn't quite close as nicely as this did, and that really counts a lot for a show.
Agreed.
And I do give props to this show, being six episodes and kind of having to tie it all up quickly, which is not easy to do, I assume.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so A-. Okay, so real quick, we do need to get into a couple things so the one character we did not touch on, he's not in the show a lot, but Danny Ramirez plays Joaquin Torres, who's like a friend of Sam. He's kind of his, I guess the closest thing you say is like his Q, essentially. And so we mentioned that Walker breaks, that Walker tears Sam's wings apart, and basically, as I mentioned, he's this tech guy, and so he, leaves his old wings with him. In the comics, Joaquin becomes Falcon. He becomes when Sam takes over the mantle. So we're clearly heading that way, that he'll fix the wings and become his own version of Falcon, which I'm all for that. That'll be really cool. That'll be a really cool moment when we get there. The other thing, two other things I want to bring up real quick. The other thing we have to bring up is fucking Julia Louis-Dreyfus makes her debut in the MCU. I
love that addition.
That shocked the shit out of me. So the fact this leaked nowhere is shocking to me.
Yeah, it was shocking.
Because, dude, we talk about leaks all the fuck. I just talked about Miss Marvel's costume being leaked. Like stuff leaks all the time, but nothing leaked on this, like anywhere. And I went, son of a bitch. Okay, so the reason why she's so important, she's a very prominent figure in the hierarchy of Hydra. So I feel like Hydra is going to be a thing again, because honestly in the comics it usually is. Like
I want to stop you because this is like kind of one of those moments where I feel like I'm like left out.
Okay.
Where I'm like, I know that she's important, and if I knew more about it, I would be like, oh shit, look who it is. But they introduce her, but in a way, like obviously building suspense. They're not gonna be like, hey, look who I am. But it's like, as somebody who's not immersed in it, it's like, I still don't know who that person was.
so I'll be honest, man. I think you'll know what I mean. You're not really supposed to know who she is right now.
That's what I expected the intent to be, is like, okay, we're not going to tell you because we don't want you to know. We want there to be some mystery there. But,
yeah.
I knew that, like, I can just picture you watching it and being like, oh, shit, that person. And I'm like, I feel like maybe I should know this.
oh, no. So I'll be real, dude. She's okay. If you don't read comics regularly, she's very much a deep cut. Like, you just wouldn't know unless you're reading comics regularly. So yeah, to your point though, when I saw her, it's hilarious you say that. That was, and my partner can attest, that was literally my exact reaction when I saw Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I went, oh shit, it's her. And when she started talking about like her name being Val, I went, ooh, like I was very much like having that reaction. So you were 1,000% correct as far as me acting like that. The other thing we have to bring up, man. So here's what's interesting about this. There's no comic precedents for this, but Emily VanCamp, we find out Sharon is the power broker. right? Which again, that's something we mentioned as a not a criticism, but just fleshing her out a little more. That's a very interesting wrinkle. The fact that she gets her pardon and yet she's still like, fuck the U.S. government. I'm gonna do what I want. And here's where it gets kind of trippy. And I can't. This was kind of confirmed, kind of not. So take this somewhat with a grain of salt. That person that Sharon is talking to on the phone once she gets her pardon, and she talks about how we'll have access to weapons and all this shit, right? That's supposed to be Willem Dafoe's Norman Osborn, is the rumor. Like, apparently he's coming in at the end of the next Spider-Man. So that's why the scene kind of cuts, is that we're going to find out that it's him on the other end of the line. That's the rumor. So if that's the case, that opens up a whole other can of worms that, I'll be honest, we don't have time to get into right now. But it's a very interesting wrinkle as far as where they could take her, because let's be real, man. What's the phrase? There's no greater afraid than a woman scorned. I mean, and she was really screwed over. So her having this power and being back involved with the government is a really interesting, direction to take her character. Also with her being, Peggy Carter's niece, there's the own tragedy of her having, expectations on her last name being Carter and then completely abandoning, everything that makes that name and her family great. I mean, there's a story there to be told. So I'm really curious where they're going to take her. I'm happy they didn't kill her off. I'm happy they didn't kill off Zemo, because they clearly have more plans for Zemo. By the way, Zemo having that caravan destroyed, blown up while he was in jail, that's a baller move. And him looking right at the camera like, haha, fuckers. Like, I love that shit. I was like, okay, oh, Zemo, you're great. So,
he added such a great, like, unexpected humor to the show.
Yeah. And okay, last thing I will bring up, the Dora Milaje is in this. And it's just enough. It's just enough Wakanda. Like, it doesn't it doesn't engulf the show. But I love the fact that Bucky not only got cured by Shuri and Ayo, but can we talk about the fact, Scott, that while his Winter Soldier program has been wiped out, apparently it's been replaced with jungle fever, because. Which there's no cure for, Scott. But we gotta bring up, man, like
he's hot on the trail.
Yeah, he is hot on the trail. I mean, I want to put some respect on her name. Florence Kasumba is the actress's name, and she looks great bald. She pulls that shit off in a way I went, God damn, that's really fucking impressive. But not only that, man, Bucky's making a play for Sam's sister, man. Like
that's gonna happen.
Oh yeah, he's gonna grab his Winter Soldier at some point. It's gonna be.
Tell me to give me the codes to fuck you.
Give me the codes to fuck you. But yeah, man, we're clearly gonna get that at some point, and there's that point where Bucky. I will say too, Bucky being invited to the cookout, the literal cookout at the end. I was like, he's one of the good ones. See, he loves black people. But I love that though, man. I love that the series ends with Bucky and Sam actually being friends because they're friends, not acquaintances because of Steve. And I think that's a really important distinction to make. And I'm really excited to see where they go with this. I'll be real, dude. I don't know exactly where they're going with this. And that's actually a good feeling to have, to actually know, think, where could they possibly take this? But, to kind of paraphrase Isaiah, he's got the mantle now. Now the work begins. So now Marvel really is going to have to kind of, figure out where they want to take Captain America, which, I mean, again, that's kind of a good problem to have, but I'm horribly excited to see where they go with this. But yeah, man, anything else you want to bring up?
No, I think you covered it very well, I might add.
Thanks, man. But yeah, this is something. Seriously, watch this, and I'll be real, man. It's last thing I will bring up. So IGN, I like IGN. I don't always agree with IGN, but they gave the series finale or the season finale this a 5, and I cannot express how fucking stupid I think that is. Like honestly, like a 5 out of 10, really for the that like one of those things I just went, this is stupid. Like in the same way, I think something like Wonder Woman is so important for women in general. The first one, not the second one, but but I think that in that same vein, it might behoove you if it might behoove people to actually ask people of color what they think about this, because there is a lot here that is very much made with that slant. Not saying you can't appreciate the show if you're not black, but it definitely is one of these shows that leans so much into black issues, and just the people of color I've talked to, for the most part, the response has just been, wow, I can't believe that, a modern show is touching on things like this. So it's well worth watching, I think, just off that alone. And I think the action scenes in that last episode, there's this point where Sam throws a shield through a helicopter and takes this guy out at the same time. And went, holy shit. I was like, God, like the action's incredible in that last episode. And really throughout the whole series, the opening episode is out after the first scene is basically this 10-minute chase scene where Falcon's doing like flips and shit and like parkour. And I was like, wow, this is fucking amazing. Like to your point though, the action is so well done just across the board. But yeah, I have genuine admiration for the show. There's a rumor there might be a season 2 after the movie, and the way this episode or the series ends with it being called Captain America and the Winter Soldier, love that. It's like a very subtle thing, but yeah, absolutely well done. Bravo, Marvel, you're kind of good at this. But everyone, Falcon and Winter Soldier, have you seen it? What'd you think? Let us know in the comments. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter at JHunterRealPineapple. You can follow Scott on Twitter at
Newman the First.
And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. SoundCloud, Apple, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Amazon Music, and TuneUp, to name a couple places. And you can follow us on Facebook as well, like our pages at The Real Pineapple, and like our gaming page, Real Pineapple Games. I'm going to be hopping on Twitch here this month. I think I'm going to start streaming probably Sonic Mania. I'm actually real excited to play that game. Right? But everyone, thank you so much for listening. We'll have reviews up here soon for Mortal Kombat. I'm actually reviewing that on Wednesday with my friend Alyssa. I'm really excited to get into that. Gonna have a review up here for Nobody, which I saw again yesterday, and spoiler alert, it's a great freaking movie, and along with some other stuff. But everyone, thank you so much for listening. Take care of each other. Stay safe. Wear a mask. Get your COVID shot. And we'll talk to you soon.
Peace.